Cambridge I'm with Sean is a Weirding Way Media podcast.
Josh, I'm going to have to tell him.
About my weirdness?
I'm sorry, Josh.
Hello and welcome to Cambridge and with Sean, a podcast by two weird guys about the weird things they like. No more air quotes. I'm just going to say it like it is. It's fucking weird, man.
I always say two grown men talking about toys.
That's right. It is what it is. Take it or leave it.
And most people are leaving it these days, but that's okay.
What does it even matter? The people that are listening are the ones that matter, as long as we're enjoying ourselves. I do have to say that it's been a long time coming that we're about to talk about the things we're talking about today. I'm really excited to finally get around to this.
Very true.
How you doing?
Okay. How are you? How's
Okay,
your voice?
how are you?
You don't sound like Demi Moore.
I know. It's gotten a lot better.
Good.
Yesterday was really bad. Folks, I'm Ronnie, otherwise known as Skelevator over on the YouTube. Yesterday, I was texting Mark, telling him that I thought I had laryngitis because I was losing my voice. And sure enough, today, I sound a lot better.
Sound normal to me. I am Mark. I'm the other host of this stupid show.
It's a Friday. It's, I don't know what I was going to say. It's important to remember that when the world feels like it's really crumbling in a multitude of ways around you, to treasure the moments you have with your friends and talk to them about the things you like and enjoy those moments. Because otherwise, what else is there? Friends and family, folks. Friends and family.
Yep. All right, let's get into this, bro.
What is your subject for today's episode?
Well, as we've stated, these are both things that we've talked about in the past. I know that last year I promised to do this item or these items or this thing this year, and I'm finally getting to it. It was brought up by Jules Martin on his episode in relation to large-scale toys. And so I am going to be talking about Shogun Warriors today.
Imagine you enter the world of the Shogun Warriors. They're on the move. There's Raideen with delta-wing missiles, Dragoon with a star shooter, and Mazinga with a rocket launcher. The Shoguns. Imagine you command them to defend freedom, protect justice, and challenge evil. The Shoguns. They're ready to strike when you are. Shogun Warriors, Mazinga, Dragoon, Raideen, equipped with their own gear, each sold separately from Mattel.
This is like Micronauts and like Transformers, one of those, we took this from somebody else and tried to make it work for an American audience, which it did. It was very popular for a brief period of time in the late 70s and very early 80s. I did a little bit of research, and the genesis is, of course, in Japan. Started in 1973 by Popey, which was a division of Bandai, which is still a huge toy company. And from what I understand, Popey was like their licensed character branch. They took inspiration from a lot of these shows and comic books that featured giant robots that were popular in Japan. So in 73, they started with Mazinger Z, which was a Go Nagai character. Pacific Rim, maybe people are familiar with those giant robots that are piloted by people. So he was one of those. Popey's version of these lasted for at least a decade, from 73 when they started until 82-ish, 83. They were very, very popular in Japan. So, like Micronauts and Transformers later on, somebody caught wind of these pieces in Japan and decided to import the idea over here. So Mattel got the license to create Shogun Warriors in 1977, which for me, I would have been 8 years old, and that's like perfect
Oh, yeah.
age for robot sci-fi stuff. I mean, Star Wars was around and robots were a big thing, and I don't have any clue as to when I actually tuned in to these things, like if it was a commercial or if somebody had one, or the comic book ads that became so ubiquitous during that time. And I don't know if it was the small scale or the large jumbo machinders, which is what they're called in Japan. I don't know what caught my attention first, but they definitely caught my attention, especially the jumbo figures. Even to this day, when I watch the Shogun Warriors ads or even the Japanese ads for their toys, it's just amazing how massive they are. The Japanese commercials especially use really young kids in the ads, and the jumbo figures are like practically their size or maybe a foot shorter.
Yep.
And it's amazing. So I was really obsessed with the big, large-scale figures. They were, as we mentioned on the episode with Jules Martin and have mentioned in the past, they were made out of the material that shampoo bottles are made out of, or other kind of disposable bottles that we're all familiar with. It's called PET, I think, polyethylene terephthalate or something. Look it up, I don't know. Basically like a polyester plastic mix of some sort. And it's cheap. You know, the figures are hollow. Many of them have a little weighted bag of sand at the bottom of their legs so that they don't fall over. It's durable. I mean, I have some now that are still in absolutely beautiful condition. I mean, of course, plastic's never going to really degenerate unless you leave it out in the elements all day or whatever.
Or unless it's a NECA figure from the early 2000s.
I never had the jumbos, but I did have some of the die-cast. So there were die-cast lines. And again, this was all started in Japan. They did both versions there first. And there were 3.5 inch or 3 3/4 inch die-cast figures and 5-inch die-cast figures. And I believe I had I know I had a 5-inch figure because I have a picture of me probably Christmas of 77. I look about 8 years old. Still look pretty young. I don't think I'm any older than that. Holding my die-cast Dragoon, who was my favorite character. I loved the head sculpt of him. The spiky head and robotic, but also like a dragon. I might have had one other. I kind of vaguely remember having a blue figure when I was a kid, but it could have been a friend's. I don't know. I don't think many of my friends had these. I don't even think my friend Jason, who had every toy on the planet, had them or not. I only ever really remember seeing the big ones at kids' houses who I wasn't necessarily really friends with. And I think I mentioned on the Jules episode, there was a kid around the block from me, and I think my mom knew his mom or something. I didn't really know the kid. He was a year or two younger than me. He had something. He had one of them. And that was really the only time I ever saw them or played with them in person. So other than the die-cast, the only other thing that I had was the Dragoon model kit from Monogram. I think this was sort of a concession of my mom's, like, oh, he's way into these, but they're just too darn expensive. I believe the jumbos were $15.99 retail, which is a lot in $1977.
Yep.
And I am pretty positive that's why I never had any. So the model kits were cool because they still had action features. They came with springs and you could load firing missiles on their chests and fists and stuff. But I put that Dragoon together. I believe his base color, I want to say, was yellow. And I never painted it or anything because models were not my thing and never have been. And I still don't do models. So it was just a big yellow chunk of plastic with a couple firing missiles. And I think they were maybe a foot or so tall. The point of that is that the big thing with these jumbo figures was that they came with just tons of accessories. They all came with firing missiles. They all, or not all, but many of them came with firing fists or other accessories that you could attach to them that fired off. Dragoon had the Star Shooter, which was this clunky kind of clip that you would put on his arm that shot out these stars. And he also could fling these tiny little, not in scale axes And then I know that at least 3 of them had firing fists. So the fists would shoot off. The Godzilla that they made for the line, that Mattel did for the line, had a firing fist and the tongue that would stick out. The first one, Mattel called Great Mazinga, came with a rocket launcher. He didn't have a firing fist, but you could shoot rockets out of the attachment on his arm. So yeah, I've always had a thing for them. Never had the Jumbos as a kid, but when you grow up and start having your own money, things can change. Back in, I had to look through my Facebook memories because that's where I posted so much of this stuff back then. I don't do it anymore, but I'm like, God, when did I start getting these again? It was one of the first things I looked at when eBay rolled around, but I didn't have enough wherewithal, and there wasn't at the time, or at least I couldn't find the resources to know whether something was complete, and there weren't people making replacement parts early on. By the time I actually actively was looking for these on eBay, there were these guys making replacement missiles and all these other things, that would get lost or break. I started actively looking for Shogun Warrior stuff in 2012, 13 years ago. And the first thing I bought was a 5-inch Dragoon, the die-cast metal figure, and it was in decent shape. I believe that it worked. His fist fired. And then I bought a second one. I think I found a little bit nicer version. I mean, very quickly thereafter, and bought that one too. A month later, I bought my first Jumbo, Guy King. He's the yellow one, the only one really with like a lot of yellow on him. His face is supposed to be a lion, I guess.
Mark meant chest, not face.
The Mattel version is very funky. The Japanese version is really cool. It's got a very highly detailed chest piece, face to him, but they kind of chinsed out for Mattel. I think that same month I ended up with a Dragoon. And at the time in 2012, I don't think I spent, I'm pretty positive, I didn't spend over $100 on any of the ones I bought. I was patient enough and knew that if things were missing, I could get replacement parts now, and I just kept it low, like a 75, 85, maybe even less than that on occasion. So the Dragoon that I got did not come, or no, I think he did come with this Star Shooter, but it was broken. And that's one of the things that I forgot. I think he just goes by, what does he go by? Well, there's a guy, I'll insert that later. He makes all this stuff.
They're called Shogun Plastics.
The clip would break on the Star Shooter. So he made the clip, so I got that. And so I had a complete Dragoon. And then, of course, that clip, because it was a cheap resin reproduction, eventually broke. And I'll probably buy one again later. But I think before the end of the next year, I had 5 Shogun Warriors and also the LJN Voltron Jumbo, which came with a little electronic base that you could motorize him on, and I tossed that out. And that one was in really rough shape, but the same guy made replacement sticker sheets. Like every sticker was redone, and so I totally cleaned it up. I actually even put him in the dishwasher to get all the extra stuff off. And I look at the pictures now and the process that I did, and I thought, man, I should have just not even replaced the stickers, because just the bare plastic is really fucking cool looking, especially for him, because he is 4 different colors: black, red, green, blue, and yellow. They look really cool, just plain plastic, and I should have left it, but I don't know, maybe someday I'll strip them all off. They're starting to peel anyway. Accessories, they all came with little, I like to call them roller skates. So you can move them around. And of course, the accessories caused problems back then, and people shooting each other in the eye or swallowing the missiles. So changes were made to a lot of that stuff. And I think some of the springs were probably weakened, and they didn't get rid of any of the accessories or stop the missiles from firing. I know that the tips were changed, like to be less pointy, and The other thing, around the same time, Mattel kind of re-released Shogun Warriors. They did both versions of Voltron. So there's the Lion version, which was based on Go Lion, a Japanese show. And then there was the car version. I can't remember the name of that one, but they did both. And I ended up with the Lion one again. But it was just a big, giant vinyl figure. It didn't have any missiles. It didn't have rolling wheels or anything like that. It's kind of cool, but it's not even up with my other ones. I just have it in another room somewhere. Of course, Super 7's dipped into the jumbo figure arena with some Star Wars figures. They did a Boba Fett. They did a Stormtrooper. They did Skeletor. They went into the Motu world with that. And then just recently, within the last, 3 years maybe, Bandai has been re-releasing versions of their originals. And they're not badly priced. I haven't bitten on any of them. I don't really feel like I need ones that I already have. Maybe one of them will roll around that I'll try and get. You can find them on Amazon for a couple $100 or something, which, like I say, for a 24-inch figure really isn't all that bad. But as I was buying all this stuff and going through eBay, I stumbled on something I had no idea existed. Well, I shouldn't say that, because the Mattel figures did come with accessories, but there was a whole line of accessories that Popey made for these figures, and they are absolutely insane. At the time, I got 2 of them. I think they were maybe $20, and now if you're looking, you're not going to find anything for under a couple $100. The figures' arms are detachable, and so these accessories were mainly to stick on the arms. I got the, let me see if I have it out. I got the XX10, which is, I don't know what.
That looks crazy.
A fire extinguisher. So you put this white part on the figure's back, fill it up with water, and then this goes in where you take his arm off. Got a button here, and it sprays water.
That is so cool.
And then the other one I got is, I guess it's a elevator that goes down into a little carport where there is a little plastic car that you can shoot out of it. You know, these things were piloted by people, right? So the guy climbs down the arm of the figure, gets into the elevator, and gets in his car and takes off.
That's amazing.
I'll put a website up that has a list of these, because I could just sit here for 15 minutes and go through. They're just crazy. But Mattel, what they did was they included one of these accessories with their figures. The figures in Japan did not come with these accessories. Some of them came with firing fists and stuff, but so like Ray Dean has this thing called the Iron Cutter that's got these blades on it and it fires off. Guy King has one of the firing fists. Mazinga has the rocket launcher, and normally it would have just been 2 fists and then you replace it later, but Mattel's like, well, we'll grab some of those accessories and include them with the thing. And that's why they always look kind of weird, because they're not symmetrical at all. The one hand's always different on the figures, like one's longer or one's bigger or one's got these iron blades on it and all that stuff. When I was buying them back 13 years ago, I was reminded of how goofy that looked, but then I thought, well, that was actually really smart of Mattel. They gave kids these things that they never would have had, or they could have sold separately and tried to make more money, but kind of did the cool thing and included them in there. I have looked at a couple. There's a crane that has a magnet where you can pick up a tiny little die-cast car made by Tonka for some reason. All kinds of accessories, all these things that shoot out balls. You can have a thing that shoots out like golf ball size rocks, and it's just nuts, man. But like I said, now they're all $200 or $75 for a loose one that's broken, and I want to say I got mine for 10 to 20. I mean, they were really cheap, and they're boxed. I have the boxes for them as well.
Nice.
Before I hurt myself, I was moving stuff into this office and I cleaned all of them up. And as I sat there cleaning them, I was like, oh man, these things are so cool. And that's when you really kind of get the idea of the scale when you're holding one.
Right.
When I had gotten the fire extinguisher accessory, the little blue tube that connects the pack to the spray had been in the package this whole time, so it was bent, like irreversibly bent. I tried to heat it, I tried to boil it back into shape, and it just wouldn't go. So I bought some clear plastic tubing at Lowe's to replace it, which wasn't ideal. It fit perfectly, but it wasn't blue like the original. So as I was cleaning all these up and doing that stuff and reattaching stickers that were starting to peel, I was like, I got to be able to find a blue plastic tubing on Amazon. And so I bought a pack of something, and it was the right size, but it wasn't flexible at all. And so I couldn't get it on the ends to connect the two parts. It wouldn't budge. And I heated it and heated it and heated it. And so I found a different one. It was better. It's still not as flexible as the original, but so I now have blue tubing that's a little more accurate. And then the straps on it are that kind of ribbony thing that fancy Christmas packages are wrapped up in.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that elastic that's got silver on it or whatever. So I was searching for that, and I'm measuring it. I've got my little millimeter thing out. I'm like, what's the width on it? So I found a big old pack of that on Amazon and need to replace the straps. They're super, super loose. I mean, it fits on a figure, but it kind of hangs down its back. I haven't attached that yet, but I will here eventually. That's it for me. I mean, as a person who doesn't like large scale figures, as a kid, these were definitely fascinating. And for me now, it's more that they're sculptural, really. I mean, they just sit on top of my IKEA bookcase. I get to look at them all day long.
I love how quickly, I mean, really, when you think about the span of years from Shogun Warriors showing up for American kids to the early 80s with Voltron, and then how that evolved into Transformers, and then that evolved into the Transformer dinosaurs and beasts that they did, and the other toys that were like insects that could transform, and back to Pacific Rim with the giant robots that coming back and that being interesting to people and never going away. I love that progression. I was a Voltron fan, kind of. I had like 2 of the components as a kid, but I wasn't super invested in it, but I was part of the trend. I got involved with the trend a little bit because I was of the age, but I love the idea of these. I forgot about Power Rangers because Power Rangers does kind of the same thing. Yeah. By the time Power Rangers rolls around, I'm not interested at all. I'm more interested in the things that I'm about to talk about at that stage. But I love the idea of little people getting into these giant machines, the components coming together and creating this bigger machine. The gadget of that is exciting to me.
Cleo and I, the Go Lion Voltron was on the old one was on Netflix for a while, and we watched that pretty intently. There was a Mattel version that I missed when it came out, but I tracked down all they came in separate pieces, all the lions, and with little 3 3/4 inch figures. And once you got them all, you could combine them. So we have that as well, and I have him all split up there. And I got a couple other Voltron. There was a new show too around that same time, and so he kind of took off again. I was too old for that as a kid, but I remember it, and I remember going, well, are they lions or are they cars? Because there were 2 versions, and they weren't really Voltron. I mean, we made them Voltron here in the States, but they weren't both Voltrons in Japan. Right. Stuff like Battle of the Planets when I was a kid was one of the few Japanese shows that we got that was restructured for American audiences. I know in San Francisco and Hawaii, they had a lot more access to this stuff, the shows and the toys, even before Mattel got hold of them because of the imports and stuff and having large Japanese populations. People would import those things in there. And so kids in those areas, like in port cities in California and Hawaii, probably maybe even saw these accessories and stuff. I mean, they had accessories. They had a spaceship for one of the jumbo figures. So it was like a kid could sit on it. It was so huge. I mean, some of this stuff was ginormous. A couple of years down the road, they're going, well, we can't do that big stuff anymore. We got to shrink it down to Micronaut size. Some of those die-cast Popey figures and the Shogun Warriors actually did transform. You could change them into things. So predating the actual Transformers part, which, of course, Micronauts sort of had already started merging into as well. So all that stuff just crisscrosses. And then we try to make it happen over here. And sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it hits really hard, but only for a short period of time.
Yeah, I think U.S. young kids from the United States get into Japanese stuff like in this cyclical pattern. Like it's, it goes and comes and it goes and it comes, and we're in it again, with 8 years ago manga coming back strong, and now with these movies that are hitting the theaters. What is it, Demon Slayer or something like that are just like blowing our movies out of the water as far as making money, and then it goes away for a while and then it comes back. And I think it's interesting. The Japanese are always they always seem a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to toy trends and pop culture trends. It's kind of amazing. I've never really been huge into it. In fact, I think I don't know what it is about anime style, but even with the older cartoons that were basically used or recycled for American audiences when I was a kid, like Voltron cartoons and Speed Racer and even Thundercats. I feel like Thundercats was very anime style. For some reason as a kid, I wasn't into that as much as I was like the wonky American stuff like Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera and Filmation.
I remember really liking Battle of the Planets. That was tail end of childhood for me. I just barely caught that. I feel like I was starting to kind of age out of stuff. I remember liking a lot. It wasn't aired a lot, though. And there was another thing. I want to say it was called Force 5 or something like that, but it was only in limited markets. I want to say in the East, they took a bunch of different shows, a bunch of the Japanese shows, and just smushed them all together, presented them as this one cohesive thing, and they weren't. They were all separate shows, separate characters, but a lot of them were these giant robots. We never got that here. It was pretty popular for a while, but short-lived. A lot of the stuff, it hit hard, and then people lost interest, and they would just disappear. Well, that's it for me in Shogun Warriors.
Well, that's awesome. I every time I'm over at your house, I'm always need to get a glimpse of those guys standing up there because they're huge. They're amazing. I love blow mold plastic holiday decor, and I love shampoo bottles and bubble bath bottles and all that stuff. And these push those buttons for me. They're amazing. It's
a really cool material. It's fascinating. It's, like I said, sturdy and durable. And of course, I can't say that they haven't lost color, but I mean, they're all still very bright. The red is very red. The blue that they use is almost a light teal. It's got a little bit of green in it. It's not like a straight blue, and it just looks gorgeous. They're fascinating designs and that kanji lettering on them and stuff. And they're fun to look at. And
yeah, they're cool.
Like I say, when I was cleaning them up, man, I was just getting a kick out of touching them, and that blow mold plastic is fascinating. It's thin, it's hollow, but it's durable, and there's no like stress marks anywhere on any of them. And I got lucky that none of these were more than $100.
Yeah, that's awesome, Mark. And I've been wanting to hear you talk about Shogun Warriors. Love it. Love that stuff.
We'll be back in a second, and we'll hit Ronnie's topic for the day.
Who are you?
My name is Pussy Galore.
I must be dreaming.
What are you talking about, dude?
I'm talking about something I've been meaning to get around to for a while now. They keep popping up. This theme has been popping up lately. Like, it's weird. I guess it's part of the zeitgeist dilemma that we're always talking about here. The moment you start to get re-interested in something, the world seems to react. So like right now, I feel like there's a lot of rumblings for the new potential new James Bond movies that are coming our way now that MGM has been purchased by Amazon and the Broccoli family is no longer in charge of the James Bond franchise. There's a lot of folks that are nervous about it, kind of me included. I'm interested to see what they do, especially since they've attached director Denis Villeneuve. They've attached him to direct the next Bond movie. So that's cool because that guy's pretty darn talented. As I've been frequenting the antique stores over in Clovis a little bit more regularly now that I'm a little bit more motivated to do so, and I get to, have coffee with Jules, otherwise known as HP. Have coffee with him, peruse the stuff, and remembering. It started with me remembering how I had gotten rid of my Signet paperbacks that I collected when I was transitioning out of my youthful interests, moving into puberty town. I really got excited about the Ian Fleming books because there were provocative moments in them, amongst many other things too, like just being a young boy and sort of fascinated by the cool Bond thing. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Yeah, when I was in junior high, maybe, 7th, 8th grade, probably more like 8th grade, because that's when I was reading a lot of Stephen King and starting to go to used bookstores more frequently and really started to collect James Bond paperbacks, specifically the Signet Classics paperbacks. Those were the things, the pocket books. Those were the versions of the books I was more interested in. For some reason, I was interested in first editions when it came to other types of literature, but there's an aesthetic to the Signet paperbacks that I'll get to in a moment that really appeals to me. So I started collecting those, and I was actually reading them. I immediately transitioned from, what I understood Bond movies to be, which was my dad showed me some of the early Sean Connery Bond movies when I was little. And then A View to a Kill, when that hit the theaters and I saw that was like a big moment for me. There was something about that movie that was really cool. The Duran Duran song, maybe. Christopher Walken as the villain.
Would you be interested primarily in stamina or speed?
Grace Jones. I don't know. There's just something about that Roger Moore movie that really appealed to me. I watched that movie on repeat. I VHS taped it off of television when it aired one day. And then when I started reading the books, I realized, this is a bigger thing than what the movies make it out to be. There are problems in the books. Ian Fleming was unabashedly racist and misogynistic in his books. And that is something that I struggle with. Right now, I'm actually audiobooking them. I just finished Casino Royale, which is the first Ian Fleming paperback. I'm at a stage of maturity where I can hear it and bypass it, but it doesn't go unnoticed. It's difficult.
So they're not the edited. They were talking about getting rid of all that stuff in the James Bond books, and I don't know if they've actually gone through with that or not.
If they did, I've not paid enough attention to the details as far as language goes to know the difference from the versions that I have right here, the Signet paperbacks, and the one I'm listening to in the audiobook. But I will say this: there are things in even just Casino Royale, and I just started listening to Live and Let Die. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the word he's going to use to describe this person. Okay,
well, then they probably haven't.
Yeah, so
you're not listening to the ones that they have.
Yeah, I think that they're.
If they have.
I don't know if if they have, even if the language that they are using could be worse. I will say that there are worse words to use. I do remember when I read Dr. No when I was in 8th grade. I remember some language in there that still exists in the newer versions. That I was like, yikes, that's pretty rough language. There's something about the Signet paperbacks that really appeals to me. I'd talked to Jules on one of our trips to the antique stores in Clovis about, I'm looking for these because it'd be really cool to get these back in the collection. And I think he got the bug too. So he got some for himself and then he sent me some as well. And so I posted a video on my YouTube channel for things that I got for my birthday. And I did get a nice stack of James Bond Signet paperbacks from Jules, who it should be noted that Jeff has recently legally changed his name to Jules. So Jules is officially his legal name now. I'm going to try and appropriately call him. I've been calling him Jeff my whole, ever since I've known him. Yeah. So every once in a while, it might
Thanks
slip
for letting
up,
me know. I had no idea.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, he just made that change legally, so that's pretty cool.
Well, I'll go back and we'll record a couple versions of Jules at the end here, and I'll try to edit them in. It'll sound like a really bad ADR. Jules Martin.
Exactly. Jules Henry Martin.
I'll just use my voice, actually, for both of us to correct it.
There you go. That's awesome. Anyways, yeah, he sent me these books, and so what I'm doing is I've been rewatching the movies, which I finally have a chance to do because when Amazon bought MGM or acquired MGM and bought the James Bond rights, I thought, well, for sure it's going to be on Amazon Prime, and they weren't. They weren't up until last month.
Yeah, whoever had the streaming license before that, they're not going to just automatically give it up. It needs to run its course before they would get them back. That's true of any IP or anything. Disney buys Fox, it doesn't mean everything all of a sudden ends up on Disney Plus.
That's very true. Although I was having a hard time finding James Bond movies streaming anywhere except for Skyfall and the newer ones.
Yeah, they hop around monthly from service to service. They were always on something that just might not be one of the things that you're subscribed to. But now most likely they will stay on Prime, although Amazon now, as the rights holder, can license them out.
That's very true.
Streaming service. That's how they continue to make money.
Yeah, and so I was looking, and they were never streaming on one of the services that we owned or we are members of. Finally, Amazon got them. And I think my prediction is they're going to hold on to them for a while just because of the potential new movie and stuff. But
yeah.
You can now watch every Bond movie on Amazon Prime. Thank goodness, because I've been, looking for about 2 years now, primarily wanting to watch the older ones and especially the Roger Moore ones. So I haven't gotten to the Roger Moore ones yet. I'm following, there's a great podcast that I discovered called James Bonding, and it started in 2022, and it's co-hosted by Matt Gorley, who is I think he is a co-host, but he's a producer for Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend podcast, and he's on there with Sonam Obsessian and Conan O'Brien, and he and his friend Matt, another Matt, have a podcast called James Bonding. I think they're done. I've been listening to the earliest episodes, so I'm following their pattern that they established. What they do is they'll review or they'll talk about an early movie and in chronological order, the early movies, and then they'll go to the most recent movies, and they're going from the front and from the back and meeting in the middle at the end. Of course, at the end, I'm pretty sure that because they started this in 2022, Spectre and No Time to Die hadn't come out yet, so I'm sure they'll throw those in as I get to that point. But I've been following their pattern. My wife is a big fan of the Daniel Craig Bond for obvious reasons.
I understand I don't get the appeal of him. I understand that a lot of people do. I don't know. He's got a strange face to me. No shade to your wife.
Yeah, he's got an interesting face. I think what she likes about him, and something that I can appreciate about him too, is that he's there's nothing sleek about him.
Yeah,
he's not a smooth Bond. He is smooth. He's good at fighting, and he's good with espionage and all that stuff. His character is, but he's still a sort of. And to use language from the Bond books and from the Bond movies, he's a blunt object. He is kind of exactly how Bond is described in the Ian Fleming books, aside from the color of the hair, because he has black hair in the books. And that's about it, though. Like he is sort of described as a rough-hewn, ruggedly handsome, and Sean Connery has a little bit of that, but not really. I mean, I feel like when it comes to the Bond from the books, Sean Connery and Daniel Craig are basically the most accurate to the way he's described in the Ian Fleming books. But so, yeah, my wife and I have been watching the Daniel Craig movies, and then I'm watching the earlier films on my own because she's, and
I like Roger Moore.
there are times where it's like, holy shit, are you serious? Like when she'll pop in and she'll be watching it with me for a few minutes, she's like, this is insane. Right now I'm on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is a different Bond. He only did one movie, and I'm realizing now that's the only thing I should have written down his name. It's not coming to me, but
George Lazenby.
George Lazenby. Thank you. I thought I had seen this movie, but I'm realizing I have not seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
It's pretty lame. George Lazenby is a little hard to watch.
That's why I was only in one.
There are a lot of fans out there that do respect this movie because it is a more complicated, it does involve a more complicated love story, kind of like what's happening in Casino Royale, which is where, Bond shows certain sensitivities that we don't normally see. But it's almost a parody. There's a lot of references to the fact that, not a lot. There are a few references to the fact that this is a different actor than Sean Connery. So it's a self-conscious.
That's interesting.
There are moments where it's almost breaking the fourth wall. In the first 15 minutes of the movie or first 10 minutes of the movie, those opening action sequences that transition to the sexy intros and then it goes into the real movie. At the end of that first action sequence, he almost looks at the camera and says, "This never happened to the other guy.
This never happened to the other fella."
Like, it's like, are you serious? And then his outfits are very much what Austin Powers is inspired by.
Interesting.
So there's a lot going on, and there's some really surreal situations where he's mansplaining to a group of women something, and they're really into it, and you can hear them sort of moaning in their seat. It's
nice.
Super weird movie.
And it might be Lazenby. I've heard it both ways, but I've always pronounced it Lazenby just for clarification.
I've always heard it Lazenby as well, but yeah, it might be Lazenby. I respect the guy. I mean, he's put into a situation that's super awkward. I imagine the hate must have been tangible. People being pissed off that Sean Connery's no longer part of it. Sean Connery does come back and do Diamonds Are Forever before it transitions formally to Roger Moore movies. So they did convince Sean Connery to come back. And then it switches over to Roger Moore movies, and then Never Say Never Again. I believe it's Never Say Never Again. Yeah. Sean Connery, along with one of the co-producers, they independently decided to make a Bond movie while Roger Moore was still making his movie. In fact, that came out the same year as another Roger Moore movie.
I remember all that.
I think it was Octopussy was the same year as Never Say Never Again.
Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond. My name's Bond. James Bond.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
Yes, my name is Bond. James Bond.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
Bond.
Start ringing.
James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
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 Bond. Bond. Bond.
The first book that I listened to on audiobook was Octopussy, and it's a short story along with The Living Daylights and Property of a Lady. Property of a Lady is the only short story title that hadn't been used by the Broccoli family to make a movie out of. I was really surprised. Octopussy, the short story, is kind of amazing. It's about this guy who's an ex-spy who's made some decisions that have put him in a situation where he has to be in hiding, and he's in hiding in the tropics. And it was a really well-written short story that doesn't align with the movie Octopussy at all. That was kind of an interesting discovery. That being said, the part of the reasons why I been wanting to talk about Bond this whole time is because of the appeal of the Signet paperbacks. The name of the artist who does the little illustrations that are sort of in the center of the paperbacks is Barry Phillips, spelled Barye. Those illustrations are amazing. There are certain things aesthetically that happen in the Bond novels and in the Bond movies that are incredibly interesting. And it's no wonder that the popularity maintains despite the misogyny and the racism that the whole franchise is sort of resting on. I mean, those two things are kind of a foundation for the Bond stories. But I can see why it's popular. The gadgets, the espionage, the romance of the situations, if you're a man and you watch these movies, I can see the appeal. But I also, in watching them at this stage in my life, I can also see clearly why part of the reason why men are so conflicted in the way that they perceive the world around them. The novels are written in a particular way where there's definitely the characters are contemplating big issues and and James Bond in particular dealing with particularly challenging situations that the movies rarely even explore, except for the more contemporary ones, the Daniel Craig ones that finally get to explore what's really at stake for a character like Bond. It's good to see that the films now are working harder to explore the complicated nature of the situations. But the way Hollywood approached this in all previous Bond films, including the Timothy Dalton ones, including the Pierce Brosnan ones, is really kind of gross. When you watch old movies where men are men, hard air quotes for that.
And women are objects.
When women are objects and men are men, and the idea that, boys will be boys and all that bullshit. It's no wonder that we're so challenged as men in contemporary society to just sort of be good people. It's really hard. It's ingrained in the way we perceive things. I'm really to make a long story short, I'm really enjoying listening to these Bond books and seeing the flaws from the perspective as a 49-year-old guy who's dealt with these issues himself, and also keeping the hope that the Bond franchise will maintain but will evolve appropriately. So, all these assholes saying, like the Daniel Craig Bond movies, when they first started happening, that they were woke or they were not. It's not the Bond I grew up with. Read the books, because I just finished reading Casino Royale, and yes, he's a misogynist, and yes, he's problematic, but that character is written in a way that he's experiencing real conflict, falling in love with somebody and having his heart broken by the situation. I'm not going to give anything away, but it's a very similar plot line in the Daniel Craig Casino Royale. I find that a little bit exciting, that the books have a strong enough foundation that the stories can be transition to the late 2020s in a way that allows us to think progressively about the male endeavor. I love having these books on my shelves now that Jules got them to me, and I'm enjoying watching these old movies and watching the new movies, watching my wife get all flustered when Daniel Craig emerges out of the water with his chiseled body. It's awesome. Objectify the man, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
That's my subject matter for today.
We can put those in the old filing cabinet and never talk about them again. We never bring stuff back up, on this show.
No, and we never talk about rock balls or Masters of the Universe. I'm sure Ian Fleming will rear his head again down the line.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the new whatever show or movies or whatever they end up doing.
I hope it's good.
I really want them to hire a black actor to be James Bond so that people's brains can just implode.
A black female actor.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. I'm all for it. When Moneypenny was black in the new James Bond movies, that was amazing. When M in the Pierce Brosnan movies was Judi Dench, and she went through and became the M in the Daniel Craig movies as well. I love that. Why can't M be a female? And
that's not the way it was written, Ron.
No, I know. There's people. Come on.
Who cares? Who cares what your fictional character looks or sounds like?
I know, exactly. I hope that they take some chances with Bond and they move Bond into the new era so that we don't stop seeing Bond. It's cool to see a franchise evolve, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So what if our franchises that we love suffer a little bit or change a little bit or evolve a little bit? There's always going to be something cool down the line.
Very true.
This I thought was fascinating. I finally looked up the order of the books in which they were written. So I'm trying to listen to them in audiobook form in order that they were published and written. And Moonraker is the third book, which I thought was surprising because it doesn't seem, it wouldn't, I'm anxious to see how Moonraker was written because by the time the movie was made, Bond was familiar with audiences and the campiness was acceptable at that stage, and it'd be interesting to see how it evolves or how it evolved. All right, thanks for going on this journey with us, folks. Remember, until we meet again, have fun, stay weird, and keep collecting.
And join us next week for our separate little episode on all the crap we've gotten since August. It's fucking November.
It's surprising. I've got my things here on the table, and it might not be as epic as the last one, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have a ton.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll throw in some other chat in there as well. Talk about the burger build and...
This is a tasty burger.
We'll release another episode a week after this one, so come back then. I have no idea when this one's even going to release because we are way off schedule. I'll just say within a week. That'll give me another week of editing to do, and yeah, come back then.
We're recovering.
Josh, I'm going to have to tell him.
About my weirdness?
I'm sorry, Josh.
Cambridge and Rashawn is a Weirding Way Media podcast.